God. All right, so this is amazing. I'm overwhelmed with gratitude. I can't believe you're all here, and I'm so appreciative. Thank you so much. So they say it takes a village, and I feel like in my case, it's like a major metropolitan area. So many people have helped me and supported me, not just on my journey with my book, but my whole journey to Florida. And while I appreciate every single person in this room being here, there are a few people I want to just kind of call out and thank. My fabulous hosts, Lori Bolin and Patricia Thomas. I was going to say math, and I'm not that good at math, so I just decided over 30 years is fine.
I'm the math person, you're the training person.
That's right. And I came to Florida, and my life journey led me here, and because it's really kind of their fault, but it's a good thing. Anyway. Also, I want to thank my second generation or 2G community, meaning children of Holocaust survivors who are here. The 2G community that's here, I walked into a room, a lunch, I think 4 years ago, and was immediately hugged and felt like I'd come home and was part of a family. So I want to definitely shout out to Yael Schauder, who helps me with every step of the way and anything that I ever need, and also Barbara Berggren, who is an author in her own right, plug, Witness for My Father, great book. And because Barbara wrote her book and published a year or two before me, I got the benefit of her wisdom, so every step of the way. And she was always so kind and generous about sharing that, so thank you, Barbara. And then I have family here, which just makes me feel so happy. So I just want to welcome my cousins, Lael and Dave from Dunedin, and Al and Julia from Inglewood. So I have blood family here. Hi. So here's, let me just, what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about how the book came about and the process of writing and healing. Read an excerpt, and then I'm going to read a poem from another author. And then I've got some books here that if you want to purchase, you can, and I'm happy to sign. And then I want you to drink and eat more food. And if you have a book group or an organization that you're involved with that you think this story would benefit from, me or my fellow authors are always happy to contribute and be a part of that. So think about that. And also, shameless plug or request, if you read the book and you like it, if you leave a review, and you don't have to buy it on Amazon to leave it on Amazon, but Amazon, Goodreads, whatever. If you want to. Anyway, so that's that part. Okay. So for those of you who don't know the origin story of the beginning of the book, in 2004, I lived in Ann Arbor before I moved here for about 25 years. And I belonged to a temple there called Temple Beth Emmet. And in 2004, I met somebody who was going to start a group of second generation Holocaust survivors. And I just was talking to her at a party, and she told me she had to leave to go do that. And I was like, what? I'm one of those. So we began writing and leading services for Yom HaShoah, which is the Holocaust Remembrance Day. And we did that every year and started doing the afternoon service also for Yom Kippur, which is a high holiday in Judaism. And through that, we would tell our parents stories. And over time, we would actually, we started to bring in our own perspectives about things, and even our children began to contribute. And at one point, a few of us said, well, we should really take these stories and make a book out of them. I mean, how hard can that be, right? So, well, that was 7 years ago, so you know how hard that was. But one version of the book that we talked to a publisher, and also a member of our group who's a survivor, Irene Butter, they both gave us this feedback that said, but where's your voice in this? You know, where's Ruth? You know, where are you at? I know your parents' stories, but like, what are you, what's your thing? And we were like, well, first of all, as two G's, we grow up thinking, well, who cares about our story? Like, it's our parents that, saw their families murdered and, were brutalized and dehumanized and on and on and on. What worth do we have with our struggles? So we had to kind of, come on in. We had to kind of get through that and get to a place where together we could decide that thank God I'm never gonna experience what my father experienced, right? But that, our issues and our struggles are our issues and struggles. So, they're worthy. And perhaps there are people in the world who have Holocaust survivor parents or survivors of other kinds of trauma that could benefit from hearing our stories. Then we had to get through this idea of betrayal. It's not a happily ever after story. You see movies and films and hear things and they were liberated, yay, and it's over, and then they went on to do these amazing things and build these normal, seemingly normal lives, raising families, having all kinds of successes. But there's some dirty laundry there. So can we do that? Can we air that? So we ultimately decided as a group, there were 16 of us, we decided yes, we can and we should. So we got through that, and then we started to rewrite basically. And as I began to write my chapter, I went through a real transformation. I started out still pretty frustrated and angry with my dad, and my final draft ended with none of that, feeling that that was gone. Through the process of writing and memoir, I could let it go finally. So, just like Pat was talking about the power of the art, to be able to work that through. I was able to work that through, and the test was like, well, when I see my dad, and I'm really gonna, really, and I saw him, and it was fine, and I could just be with him and enjoy him. So it was a very healing process for me. And we talk about post-traumatic growth, and there's a Japanese art form, so I got bring in the art connection here, called kintsugi, and some of you may know what it is, where they take a vase that's essentially broken or cracked, and they fill it in with gold. And I feel like that's such a good metaphor for us, for those of us who are going through, go through post-traumatic growth, because my dad is never going to be whole. I'm never going to be perfect, whole. But when you think about those cracks and what you do to heal and what you do to try to get through all of that, there's some gold there. So you're not the same, but it's still, you can still be beautiful. You can still live a warm and wonderful life with beautiful people who are, here today. So this morning, I was listening to a recording of one of my fellow authors, Fran Louisberg, and she was talking about post-traumatic growth, and I told her there were two things she said that I thought were really powerful, so I'm stealing that. And she said, life isn't about what happens to you, it's about what you do with what happens to you. So it's not about what happens to you, it's about what you do with what happens to you. And the other thing she said was that life must be understood backwards, but lived forwards. Yeah. And you know, I hear people say, and sometimes I get tired of it too, you know, the news and all that, but you know, why do we have to keep talking about the Holocaust? Why do we have to keep studying this? And why do we have to remember? And it's because we have to understand backwards in order to live forwards. So, yeah, so let's share that. Anyway, I'm going to read an excerpt.
All right.
My father's story of survival enabled us to create a strong bond. With his appreciation and love, I have found myself immersed in helping him communicate his message of tolerance and resilience. We created a second edition of his book with information from the Buchenwald archives, published it as an ebook, updated his website and video, and started a Facebook author page. I used to get annoyed with my dad. I traveled to see him in Tucson, and after a giant bear hug, squeezing the breath out of me, he would sit outside, smoke his cigar, look at his Kindle, and ignore me. But since I started writing this narrative and reflecting more deeply on his life, I've let it all go, accepting him for who he is and just enjoying our times together. All of my exasperation has melted away. Our last time together, I referred to us as Holocaust buddies, and he nodded and agreed. Doesn't hear too well, so. As my dad entered his mid-80s and cut down on his speaking schedule and travel, I grew concerned about his legacy, and I began wondering, could I effectively tell his story? Some may say it's not my story to tell. Thankfully, I wasn't there, I didn't live it, but I am still compelled to speak. If I don't, when my dad is gone, who will bear witness? Who will provide the personal connection necessary to keep his story alive and hopefully, in this small way, keep history from repeating itself? I took on the challenge, meeting with the Director of Education at the Florida Holocaust Museum and developing a presentation. My hope was to give students a sense of the connection between me and my dad, as well as telling them the story of Sevek, once a kid just like them who managed to survive through a dark period of time that lacked so much humanity. My first audience was a class of 5th graders. My dad was so excited. He couldn't wait to hear about it. I love 5th graders. They're the best, he said. He was right about how great they were. When I saw the mesmerized looks on their kids' faces, I understood firsthand the awe my dad felt telling his powerful story and why he told it over and over again for so many years. In the letter he sent to me, he wrote, "I didn't think of these talks as being anything special. I was simply telling my story." Expressing himself with humility is no longer my dad's style. He loves attention, even going so far as to have a Holocaust survivor baseball cap made for himself and his survivor friends. He wears it out all the time, and people come up to him, shake his hand, and even buy his meals. When he goes to the doctor, the whole office ends up hearing about and buying his book. But there are still times when he's taken aback by the response he gets. He may have thought he was simply telling his story, but we've both come to realize that it's so much more. Through his example, we offer young people a path to resilience and hope as they go through their own difficult times. In 2017, I accompanied my dad to a school talk in Indiana. Afterward, a boy of Sevek's age, when he went to Buchenwald, hugged my dad and told him that he had a brain tumor. But he wasn't going to give up, he said. He was going to survive just like Sevek. My father says that when he tells his story to an audience, it makes him feel closer to his family. I get that. When I tell the story of Sevek, I feel closer to my dad. In 2020, he sent me my own baseball cap embroidered with "My dad is a Holocaust survivor." I was so worried about my dad reading my chapter. I'm one of 2 people in our group that still have living parents. And at first, I was like pestering him all the time. "Dad, I want you to read my chapter. I want you to read my chapter." And he said, "No, I don't want anything negative in my life." And I was like, okay. So I kept bugging him. And finally he said, "Okay, I'll read it." But then I was like, I don't really want him to read my chapter. I don't want to hurt his feelings, you know, there's some things in there that aren't so positive. And then he's like, you know, send it to me. So I sent it to him, and then he called me after he read it, and he said, I loved it. And I said, Dad, I was so worried. I mean, it was like the weight of the world just came off my shoulders. I was so worried that, you know, I was going to hurt your feelings. I just didn't want that to happen. And he said, I don't have enough time for hurt feelings anymore. And, you know, and still like this guy who, you know, I complain about in my chapter a lot, has been on this remarkable healing journey and continues to still amaze me with his remarkableness. But let's see what else I want to say here. So now I have my dad's story and my own intertwined to carry this legacy forward through my own intergenerational lens, to inform and educate about the Holocaust, to speak out in the face of oppression, to show that from adversity can come the gifts of strength and fortitude, compassion and tolerance, and finally to offer renewed hope and optimism to many others who are challenged by difficult circumstances. And there's a phrase in the Jewish tradition called tikkun olam, and it means to repair the world. And I just feel like this is my contribution to tikkun olam. The last thing I want to do is, I want to read a poem, and there were 16 authors, but only 15 of us are living. So one of us passed away, Myra Fox passed away 4 years ago in April, and actually this week is her yard site, which is her Memorial Remembrance Day. I think I was with you in Colorado.
You were.
Like, what happened? And so I want to finish by just reading, if I can get through it, her poem. It's called Is It Essential? I wake in the night and curse yet one more time that what my own mom told me is true. Once you are a mother, the worry never ceases. But my son lives in a liberal paradise, a city of beauty and of tolerance. He is working long hours, enjoying praise for his creativity and skills, arriving home tired, enjoying time in the company of friends. And he is happy, it seems. He gets bits of information from friends and coworkers, no time to read the newspaper between jobs, no time to focus on the madness. And I wonder, is it truly essential that he recognize the trouble we're in, that he too lay terrified in the night, that he worry about who will next be impoverished, imprisoned, openly mocked and hated, deprived of the most basic human rights, exterminated? He has already listened to the stories his grandparents have shared, and he has already heard my retellings: ghettos, concentration camps, hunger, torture, loss. He knows why our family is so small. So please, can't I instead remind him of the lullabies I sang to soothe him to sleep? Remind him of Roshinkas mit Madlin dem Alphabets? Is it essential? Is it truly essential? I mourn the reality that the unlikely miracle of my parents' survival, that the unlikely birth of my sister, brother, and myself make it so. So, Myra. So thank you again for being part of my Florida family, and please, there's lots more food and drink, and I'll be over there if you want to come over and chit chat. Buy a book.